Joining us now to talk about that and what's happening in Washington, Congressman Steve Scalise. Congressman, welcome back. How is Louisiana? How close are you guys to start opening up certain sectors?
Well, Brian, first, it's good to be back with you. And, you know, things in Louisiana are getting better, especially in the New Orleans region, which had been really hard hit. And, you know, you saw a full focus, everybody from the president to our governor, to our hospital heads especially, pulled together, got the tools they needed. And, you know, clearly there was a large loss of life, but the curve is coming down. We're seeing the number of people on ventilators is decreasing. Those are all the kind of signs you want to see long-term for a recovery. And look, I mean, it's important that we start talking now about what the next steps are to open the economy. And, you know, Congress passed another big relief package yesterday. But the small businesses I talked to, you know, they know if we go another month or longer without them being able to start opening and getting some kind of cash flow, there are a lot of businesses that won't make it through that. And you've got to have an economic recovery to go along with a health recovery. And you can do both at the same time. It's not a trade-off between the two, Brian. So, you know, we've got to focus on making sure that the health and safety of people continue to increase as people recognize that, you know, we're going to have to live with this. We're going to have to social distance and wash our hands more when we're out in public. But people want to start getting back out in public. And if you want to have a job to go back to, if your business wants to be able to stay afloat in a few months from now, you've got to start getting back to work and getting our economy back up and running soon.
Yeah, let me have the right to fail. I'd like to try. All right, we get it. We've been educated. Let me get back up. And I think the people of Louisiana, Atlanta, feel a lot like the rest of America. 97% of the U.S. population under a stay-at-home, shelter-in-place. Georgia is one of the first to lead the charge to start lifting up certain industries like hair salons, like tattoo parlors, like gyms. You can now go there. And I think Texas is doing a lot, too. Right behind will be South Carolina. But meanwhile, you guys passed another rescue bill. So we call it 3.5. And it was $484 billion. And guess who blames you for the delay? None other than Nancy Pelosi, cut 32.
Mitch McConnell likes to say we delayed the bill. No, he delayed the bill. 2 weeks ago, he came to the floor and said, this is all we're doing, just the 250. And the Democrats were united, House and Senate. The Senate Democrats went to the floor and said no to that. We have a better idea. So we were very pleased that he finally came around to the fact that we had to go forward with this.
Okay, make sense of that.
Well, you know, you can try to reimagine what history was, but you can't recreate what happened in history in terms of what over the last few weeks who was blocking this aid. And you know, some people are hanging out eating ice cream so much that they're not realizing that there were small businesses dying on the vine when Speaker Pelosi was saying that she wasn't going to give them the relief unless they got other things. You had one of her top leaders, one of the heads of the main caucus in the Democrat Party, the squad, saying that they were going to use the small business aid as leverage. Her quote was leverage to get other things, Brian. So ultimately, when you had a program like the Paycheck Protection Program, which is the lifeline that's keeping our small businesses afloat right now, and oh, by the way, there's millions of Americans that rely on that. Over the 2 weeks that Speaker Pelosi delayed at bringing that relief package to the floor, there were millions more people added to the unemployment rolls. Look, just a few days ago, another 4.4 million people were announced added to the unemployment rolls. How many of those 4.4 million people would not have been unemployed if Speaker Pelosi would have brought that relief package to the floor 2 weeks ago instead of waiting not even till the midnight hour? Because we were saying weeks ago, President Trump was asking for that aid weeks ago before it ran out of money because we knew it was going to. And instead, she didn't even wait till the midnight hour. She waited for a week after the midnight hour to finally bring the bill to the floor. So, you know, you can't recreate what really happened. She held the bill up, and I think she paid a price for it politically. And now she's trying to shift blame to somebody else, and it's not going to fly.
I don't know. For some reason, she never seems to pay the price, even though she's oftentimes incomprehensible. And she does things like eating in front of a multi-million-dollar refrigerator complex overlooking the ocean. Well, 1 out of every 6 Americans is out of a job, and she's kidding around on late-night television and she seems to have gotten a pass on that. It's just stunning to me. But in terms of a way forward that really affects people's lives, Mark Cuban, who's been asked to help out on one of those councils as an expert in sports and business, said this, cut 36.
There will be a period of pain, and it's unfortunate. We're going to go through a reset. It's really difficult to know what America 2.0 is going to look like, particularly at the beginning. And so all businesses of all sizes are going to be reevaluating. And again, I'll go back to the fact that I really prefer small government and small intrusions, but now it's going to be a little bit different. I think we're going to have to see extended unemployment benefits. We may have to see a federal minimum wage.
We kind of have a federal minimum wage, but what do you think about his ideas and where we might be heading as we speculate?
Well, Brian, I think that everybody's looking at different ways for how to get the economy to come back, and nobody really can tell you what it's going to look like those first few weeks. And even with sporting events, and, of course, Mark owns an NBA team, and the NBA was in the middle of their season. And so, you look at last night was the NFL draft. Great to see Joe Burrow go #1. But, the NFL can plan on having a regular NFL season, and hopefully medicine and other techniques will catch up by the time we get to September, where you can have a full football stadium. And I hope we should all have that as a goal. But in the meantime, the NBA knows that they can't next week start having NBA games with fans in the stands because people are going to have to take some time until they realize that it's safe to go back out in public amongst large groups of people.
Right.
And some of the protocols are going to have to change too. And by the way, the NBA and Major League Baseball are probably going to be at the forefront of helping figure that out. I've talked to some owners of major sports franchises about what it's going to take to start giving people confidence, because you as a fan might want to go back to see your team play, but are you going to go in the stadium in 3 weeks to be around thousands of people? If there are certain protocols that are improved and you're seeing medical technology catch up with this disease, and hopefully that advances, then I think we will get to that point in a few weeks.
Congressman, is there going to be a fourth rescue bill? Because Mitch McConnell wants to pause it, and he says writing checks to the states is not going to happen. What do you think?
Well, Brian, you just think about the fact that now we have over $3 trillion of relief packages that have been passed. And while this is a unique situation, and, the government did tell all of these businesses to stop operating and you needed to have help coming, you can't just keep adding trillions more onto our national debt and think it's not going to have long-term consequences too. And so we've got to get people beyond the point of wondering when the next relief package is and start thinking about how to make all of this relief that we passed work effectively for people, and then how to get our economy back open. And look, some of the states that are yelling the most for a bailout, by the way, Brian, were states that were asking for a bailout prior to COVID-19 that had huge financial problems. I mean, the state of New York had a budget deficit, billions of dollar budget deficit before COVID-19. And so, to think that they can just try to roll in something that's going to mask their financial problems because they tax too high and they run businesses out of their state and they run people out of their state, this isn't the place to go to look for that. There's trillions of dollars that have been passed, including a big relief package for states. It's funny, yesterday you had people talking about, we need to do relief for states, as if they forgot that we just passed $150 billion of relief for states in the CARES package. 3.0 had that money. By the way, that money just hit states like my state of Louisiana and every other state, just hit earlier this week. So the states are getting that relief package already. To think they need to come to Washington for another relief package to bail out problems they had prior to COVID-19, that's just not where people are.
So the president's 5:40 Eastern Time press conferences that go on for an hour and a half, 2 hours, looks like if the polls are telling the truth, they're not working for him. If you see the arguing that's happening, it doesn't work for the audience that's even apolitical, that just wants to get answers on this pandemic. And then yesterday, the president was commenting on something medical that I understood what he meant, but it just gave an opportunity for his critics to tee off. This is him disagreeing with Anthony Fauci on testing. Cut 14.
Dr. Fauci said that the U.S. is not in a situation where we can say we are where we want to be with regard to testing capacity. He said we need much more testing capacity as well as tests. We're just not there yet.
No, I don't agree with him on that. No, I think we're doing a great job on testing. I don't agree. If he said that, I don't agree with him.
Well, I mean, do you really want to be up there disagreeing with your medical team? Shouldn't that have been worked out in the Oval Office?
Well, and look, I've seen some of these press conferences where some of the people in the media audience there just want to get into fights with the president. The reporters themselves are yelling at the president, and even if he's answering the question the way that they might expect the answer, they're trying to make it confrontational. But in the end, the president has talked about the increase in testing. I mean, we are ramping up testing, and we want to keep ramping that up because it's got to be more widely available. And that's why the president's been getting the FDA. Think about this, Brian. The FDA has approved new tests like that Abbott machine that you see, and there are other machines that are being approved as we speak, the saliva test, that would have taken maybe 2 years for the FDA typically to approve that. They're doing this in a matter of days and weeks, and that's because the president's moving red tape out of the way. So, you know, there'll be a time for politics. And, look, I hope Joe Biden gets out there more and more. You know, people are alarmed when they see that sometimes he doesn't even know where he is or what office he's running for. But there's going to be a time for the presidential election. Frankly, some of the numbers I've seen show the president doing incredibly well, some of his best numbers. And, you know, just like the polling that showed Hillary Clinton was going to win the presidential race, you know, I think there's some of that going on. But in the meantime, the president's still leading. He's dealing with an incredibly challenging time right now, and we're fighting this invisible enemy, and we're seeing breakthroughs every day, breakthroughs in science, breakthroughs in technology, and we're seeing the private sector coming up with more innovative ways to get through this as well. So, you know, the president's doing his job, and that is leading and letting governors, by the way, lead too. And, you know, you showed a clip earlier of my governor, John Bel Edwards, talking about reopening Louisiana. He's a Democrat. There are Republicans and Democrats that are leading their states through this, and the president's given them the flexibility to do that. That's what a leader does. He gives guidance, brings in the best experts.
And I agree.
All the best experts don't always agree, but at the same time, you know, you are seeing an increase in the ability to test. We need to keep advancing that.
No, I hear you. But would you like to see the president cut these short? You think 90 minutes is too much? I mean, some of these guys get 4 or 5 shots at the president. They ask a question, and whether they're right or wrong in the hostile in which they ask it. Don't you think we should cut it? Don't you think we should cut it back?
Well, maybe they should limit some of those reporters that are just looking for a fight. You know, give me your, you know, what is your first or second question? But, you know, have them ask 5 or 6 questions that are all rooted in, you know, conspiracies, and they're trying to get the president to answer hypotheticals and get into a fight with another governor. You know, I think people are tired of that side of the fake press. And, you know, and I think people have seen through that. But in the meantime, the president is trying to go out and show that, you know, he's not afraid of taking questions, and he's going to give as much data as he can. And, you know, there's things we're learning every day, so it's not like all the science is final on this. I mean, you know, I saw a Harvard study that came out the other day that said it's going to be until 2024 that our economy is going to be back to normal, and that we're going to be able to go out and socially distance or without social distancing. Does anybody really think that it's going to take us until 2024 to figure this out? But they can come up with studies and say whatever they want. When they're wrong, by the way, Brian, they never go back and correct their mistakes, you know, but they throw it out there.
Right.
We've got to be smart about what's in front of us, what we know, and families are going to be smart about getting back out in public. Even today, you go to a grocery store, it's a different experience than when you went 3 weeks ago, because people are doing more to protect themselves and their family, but they're recognizing they can start getting out in a safe way and in a smart way, and that's what we've got to start focusing on now.
All right, thanks, Congressman. Have a great weekend, and continue to bend the curve over in Louisiana.
Will do, Brian. Always great to be back.